Thank you. My name is Trustee Guy Francis. I'm Mayor Pro Tem. I'm filling in for Mayor Grasso while he's away. So at this time, could we take the roll, please?
Trustee Francis?
Here.
Trustee Schiappa?
Here.
Trustee Paveza?
Here.
Trustee Snyder?
Here.
Trustee Mittal? Here. Trustee Smith?
Here.
Mayor Grasso is absent.
Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, presentations and public hearings. There are no presentations and public hearings this evening. Item number 4, the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which time event the item will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed by the board, open for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. Item 5A, minutes. Approval of the regular board meeting of April 25, 2022. 5B, receive and file Plan Commission meeting of May 2nd, 2022. There are no ordinances this evening. Item 7C, resolutions. Adoption of a resolution appointing Pamela Foy as alternate delegate to the Intergovernmental Risk Management Agreement, also known as IRMA. 7D, adoption of a resolution appointing an authorized delegate and alternate delegate to the South Central DuPage County Benefit Pool, SCDCBP. 8E, considerations. Approval of a proclamation designating May 9th to May 13th, 2022 as an Economic Development Week in the Village of Burr Ridge. F, approval of a proclamation designating May 15th to May 21st, 2022 as Public Works Week in the Village of Burr Ridge. G, receive and file a resignation letter from Police Pension Fund Board Trustee Joe Paddock. H, approval of vendor list dated May 9th, 2022 for the fiscal year 2021-22 in the amount of $206,417.63 for all funds plus $192,557.98 for the pay period ending April 6th, 2022 for a grand total of $398,975.91, which includes special expenditures of $32,405 to Smitty's Tree Service for tree removal and stump grinding. I, approval of the vendors list dated May 9th, 2022 for the fiscal year 2022-23 in the amount of $45,659.08 for all funds, which includes no payroll or special expenditures. Could I please have a motion for the consent agenda? Items 5A, B, 7C, 8, E, F, G, H, and I.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion from the audience members? Take the roll call vote, please.
Trustee Schiappa?
Here. Yes.
Trustee Mittal?
Here, yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
6-0.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on. There are no ordinances. Item 7A, resolutions. Consideration of a resolution of appreciation recognizing retirement after 20 years of dedicated service to the Village of Burr Ridge, Julie Tukowski. I have here a resolution. I'd like to read out loud if it's okay with the board.
Yes, please.
As we always like to do this when we recognize valuable employees that leave us for whatever reason. In this case, it's a well-earned retirement. I'd like to read this out loud, please. So, resolution of appreciation recognizing retirement after 20 years of dedicated service to the Village of Burr Ridge, Julie Tukowski. Whereas Julie has provided exceptional service to the Village of Burr Ridge since August 1st, 2001, and will on May 13th, 2022, retire as the Executive Assistant with the Village of Burr Ridge. And whereas Julie Tukowski has provided outstanding support and service in her current role to the Village Administrator Doug Pollock and Evan Waller, and Mayors Nikki Straub and Gary Grasso, and whereas Mayor Julie Tukowski has provided the village and its employees by administering the Village Wellness Committee, Safety Committee, and the Employee Personnel Committee, while also ably providing information and guidance to ensure that said programs are operated efficiently and in the best interests of both the village and its employees. And whereas Julie Tukowski has led the front office as part of her duties as executive assistant, placing considerable importance on the service of those residents and businesses contacting the village for its assistance, and is an example to those working for the village in her commitment to serving the public. And whereas Julie Tukowski contributes significantly to her many important development projects in Burr Ridge in her previous roles as community development assistant and building and zoning assistant in the community development department, through management of the building permit process, including the Burr Ridge Village Center, Spectrum Senior Living, and Estancia Hampton Inn. And whereas Julie Tukowski has successfully managed over 7,000 building permits during her career in the village, including over 400 single-family homes, 1,100 single-family additions and alterations, totaling over $625 million in construction value. And whereas Julie Tukowski, by virtue of her own 20 years of employment with the Village of Burr Ridge, has provided outstanding service to the Burr Ridge residents, businesses, mayors, trustees, administrators, and employees with efficiency, thoroughness, dedication, and integrity. Whereas residents and businesses in the Burr Ridge are urged to recognize Julie Tukowski's exemplary service and contributions to the Village of Burr Ridge. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge, Cook and DuPage Counties, Illinois, that Julie Tukowski shall hold a place of high esteem in the minds and hearts of the residents and employees of the village, and has offered our sincere gratitude, congratulations, and best wishes on the occasion of her retirement after completing 20 years of service to the village. This resolution will be approved and adopted on this day, May 9th, 2022, by the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. To approve the resolution honoring Julie Tukowski and her 20-year retirement.
All in favor?
Any discussion on the motion? Discussion from the residents. Roll call, please. I'm sorry, Mr. Scappa.
I have had the pleasure of working with Julie many times over the years. I've enjoyed working with her. I'm going to miss seeing her and her smile in the office. I know, every question I had for her, she had an answer. So I'm going to miss that too. And I know she's moving on to spend more time with family, which is a great purpose, and that's why we're all here. And so thank you so much, Julie and her husband, for wonderful years of service to the Village of Burr Ridge.
Any other comments? Trustee Mattal.
I'd like to thank Julie for 20 years of service. She was always sunshine behind that window, and it was always lovely to see her smile, and she took care of everything and very prompt with her emails and attention to detail. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your retirement.
Anyone else? Would you take the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes. Thank you, Julie. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Yes, thank you. Just speaking for the staff, I know the title is Executive Assistant, Julie, but Her role has really taken a role of independence over the past 2 years, just with all the new things the village has done. But the thing that always sticks with me about Julie, and I always tell her this in her reviews, is that my expectation is pretty high, and Julie says it's not quite high enough. I learn a lot from her in that regard. She helps me set the tempo in the village hall and through the staff overall, and I think that's one of the things that I'll remember most about Julie is the legacy she leaves about really what service really means. It's about saying that I want to do this because it's the right thing to do, and this is what residents are entitled to. And I think that's something that really has shown through our front office, our administration department, really everybody who works and interacts with Julie, is to know that when the village says we're going to be a very special place, Julie demonstrates that every day. And so I think that's the thing that has helped me the most administer all the things that the board has asked us to do, is setting that tone, not because I think it's the right thing to do, but because Julie and people like her help me really understand what that means from a sense of Burr Ridge. So thank you, Julie, for all that time and effort you've given me. Thank you all for all the support you've helped me with in this role that I have. I am successful because of people like Julie, not because I am better or astounding. It is because I have a great team around me, and I will be missing Julie's attention, care, and really her work friendship over the last 2 years that we've developed together. I know she's moving on to a backyard pool and grandkids and things we all envy. But at the same time, we will miss the legacy she lives. And I'm looking forward to hearing about all your adventures in retirement. So best wishes. Thank you for everything from the staff, all the things you do for us, and good luck in retirement. Thank you again. Good.
Well stated, Mr. Walter. Thank you. Okay. Very good. Thank you. 7B. Resolutions. Consideration of a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Illinois Office of Comptroller and the Village of Burr Ridge regarding access to Comptroller's Local Debt Recovery Program. Mr. Walter, please.
Thank you. Moving to a much more technical topic. So the state has a program called the Local Debt Recovery Program, LDRP. It is a way for local governments to collect unpaid bills and debts that are owed to municipalities. As you can see here, we have about $100,000 of odd bills that are out right now, call these receivables. The majority of these have been accumulated over the past year since we've set up adjudication. Basically what this project does, it allows the village to enroll with the state on a basis that says any payroll taxes, any payroll checks, any refunds on a tax basis that people are owed by the state will garnish them on our behalf at no cost to the village and direct them to us for us to collect on those debts. So if someone were to owe money for code issues or had a significant water bill that was outstanding, we would be the first recipient, first in line, if you will, senior debt in those programs. Again, this costs nothing for the village to implement, to be a partnership with the state on. This is a free program they offer. Again, this is something that probably has not been needed as much in the past, but now that we have a more growing and successful adjudication program, this is something that's growing in terms of need. We do have a new software system that does offer some built-in collections, but again, this is something that every municipality should be doing, and this is an extra tool for our staff to be able to use to collect on those debts that the village has ruled ours to collect on. Any questions? I'll be here.
Any questions from the board? Trustee Snyder.
And you said there's no cost to us, correct?
Correct.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience, members of the audience? Okay, no questions. Could I have a motion for a resolution to consider approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Illinois Office of the Comptroller and the Village of Burr Ridge regarding access to the Comptroller's Local Debt Recovery Program? So moved by Trustee Paveza. Second by Trustee Snyder. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion from the audience. Roll call, please.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder? Yes. Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
6-0, the motion passes. Sounds like a win-win for the village, so thank you. 8A, consideration of a Plan Commission recommendation regarding text amendments to the zoning ordinance related to hours of operation at restaurants and business districts, Z09-2022. Community Development Director Farrell, please.
Thank you. At the February 14th Village Board meeting, the board directed the Plan Commission to hold a public hearing to amend the hours of operations for restaurants within the business districts, so the B1 and the B2 districts. Current regulations require a special use permit for hours outside of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. With special use approval, restaurants could potentially be permitted to be open until midnight, Sunday through Wednesday, 1 a.m. on Thursday, and 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. There are 12 restaurants which have approved special uses to operate beyond this 7 to 10 p.m. Out of 25 restaurants total in the village that's either currently existing or proposed. For the April 18th Plan Commission public hearing, the village attorney provided initial guidance that altering the zoning ordinance regulations for extended hours of operations would not impact those establishments which already had a special use approval for extended hours, or for those establishments located within PUDs, the Village Center and County Line Square, since they were governed by that PUD. So with that information, since amending the hours of operation would not impact the majority of restaurants, we only have 3 that are outside of those PUDs, the Plan Commission recommended to not make any changes to the zoning ordinance at that time. After the April 18th meeting, the village attorney re-reviewed the regulations and drafted language that you saw included in your packet, which would amend the hours of operation for restaurants with liquor licenses in the business districts, and it would apply to those that already had special use approval or were located within the PUDs. So this this regulation would apply to restaurants with liquor licenses only, and those businesses would be permitted to close at midnight, Sunday through Wednesday, and 1 a.m. on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So that's a reduction from that 2 a.m. to 1 a.m. These hours would be permitted by right, so no special use permit would be required. There are 2 restaurants which have previous 2 a.m. approval, and those restaurants would be continued to have that 2 a.m. approval. The board may wish to remand this case back to the Plan Commission since we received this additional information, or it could remain at the board level for review and processing.
Thank you. So as I understand it, initially we had the understanding that should the board enact some new global hours of operation, it would not apply to those with special uses.
Correct.
Now we have the understanding that should the board enact some more restrictive hours, that those would apply to PUDs and all those restaurants with special use permits to extend, but previously extended to say 2 a.m., now we could restrict them to say 1 a.m. or midnight or whatever.
Correct.
Any comments?
Anyone that had a 2 a.m. license under a special use would continue to have 2 a.m. This is now making a uniform permitted use for those restaurants that didn't have special uses going beyond 1 a.m. The way the current ordinance reads is the hours of operation would normally have been permitted hours of operation, yet each one of these restaurants had received a special use permit with different hours than what's specified in the current zoning ordinance. So that gave the appearance that it was a condition of that special use, and in further discussions with Ms. Farrell, it became apparent that that was just the practice that the village had been following, was asking essentially those applicants, what are your hours going to actually be, as opposed to what the code permitted. So by making this a permitted use, it enables those that currently have special uses that are require closing before the permitted hours to then step up to those permitted hours. But we've crafted language that specifically provides that the 2 organizations that currently have special uses that allow them to operate beyond the 1 a.m. closing, in fact, the 2 a.m. closing, will continue to be able to do so.
Very good. So let's have some questions here from the board first, if we could. Questions here from the board? Trustee Scappa?
So now these new global hours that you're considering would go to all restaurants with liquor licenses in PUDs and with special uses, and those without as well.
In the B1 and B2 districts.
B1 and B2 districts.
Apparently, your PUDs don't have specific hours for those restaurants. So This would override that.
Okay, and what are those hours again, the new hours?
Midnight, Sundays through Wednesdays, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, 1 a.m. So essentially, 1 a.m. on Saturday would carry over to actually Sunday morning at 1 a.m. Same thing with Thursday and Friday.
So these are hours we would consider, or these are hours we would have the Plan Commission consider, should we remand this back to the Plan Commission?
Yes, and I want to make it clear that since the Plan Commission already conducted a public hearing, you're not required to send it back to the Plan Commission, but that's one of your options to do so. The village, in fact, was the applicant for this text amendment.
Trustee Mattal?
Yes. So what I read, I didn't see Thursday on there. I just saw Friday and Saturday, but maybe I misread. And when you say this is the new global agreement, can you please explain that? What do you mean by that?
Yes, any restaurant with a liquor license operating in either a B1 or a B2 district, this would be the permitted hours of operation.
And who wrote that, from the Planning Commission, or who determined those hours? The new global hours?
The village did as an applicant, and then I crafted the language
Okay.
to provide for that. And I don't know if you had the board packet.
I do,
but
I
there's a-
read it, yeah.
There's a sample ordinance, I'll pass it over and.
Maybe I didn't read the ordinance one.
Yep.
Okay.
Thursday is grouped with Friday and Saturday now.
Okay, so everyone with a liquor license can avail this?
Yes.
Okay.
Without the need to have a special use hearing,
Okay.
because those are the permitted hours. Once again, I believe that the hours that were specified in your ordinance were permitted in the past, but for years, the village has been treating those as, you would be established as a condition of granting the special use. And so, in essence, we've continued the theory that we will set permitted hours, but I've added some additional language that provides that it's permitted closing time rather than a special use closing time.
Okay, and the restaurants, they can decide whether they want to opt that
Yes,
or not?
yes, that's the mandated closing time, but they can close
Earlier.
sooner. We don't
Okay.
make people stay open
Uh-huh.
longer than they
right. Thank
desire to, as long as it's within the confines of the ordinance.
Thank you.
Trustee Smith?
So a couple questions. I'm a little bit concerned that we can't get those two outliers back to that 1 a.m. Closing time. It just, for consistency, for enforcement, it would be fantastic if we could have that just, no bumps, just flat right across 1 o'clock closing. Is there anything we can do as a village to have that be accomplished?
The only way you would accomplish that is if they applied to amend their special use hours, because they were granted 2 a.m. Pursuant to a public hearing process. I don't know if they actually operate to those hours.
I don't have that list in front of me. One of those is Johnny Cabs, which is not open just yet. And the other is County Wine Merchant.
That's County Wine Merchant I'm thinking of. I don't believe they're open
I don't believe
till-
they're open until 2 a.m.
Till 2
but I
a.m.,
don't
so
have
I
it in
mean,
front of me.
midnight max.
Yeah, so,
I think, yeah, most
Well, possibly staff could encourage them at a later date.
Well, I guess I'm asking, I'm going to piggyback on Trustee Smith's question. Just because they've been permitted to, is there any difference in their actual hours of operation between what they've been permitted through special use?
well, because there's
Operating to 2, is there a takings there because they're not open or they're not operating to that extent yet?
they have the legal right to stay open till 2 a.m. granted to them pursuant to the zoning special use process. So if you were going to change it, you would need an amendment to their special use.
Staff will reach out to those restaurants just to see if we can begin that conversation, but thank you for the point.
Couple other.
One other question? Yes?
Yep, so I'm all in favor of this. I would actually recommend, if the other trustees agree, that we have this remanded back to the Plan Commission so that we can have this kind of in a nice little presentation for all of us in this village. The one thing I have not seen and may be in here is outdoor dining hours. And I think while we're going through this process, if it's not in here, I think it'd be very important that we have that stated in this.
I thought I saw 11
be your
a.m.,
suggestion?
11 p.m.
We've talked about, here in this room, we've talked about 11 p.m.
Yeah.
as outdoor closing, which I'd be in agreement, at least Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Maybe during the week, maybe it's 10.
Yes.
Trustee Snyder.
Well, Trustee Smith likes to put everything in a nice bow. You have two people that came up, went through special use, invested the time and money. Second of all, if I'm one of the restaurants and I have that, I'm gonna wanna utilize, if I have a really think good things going, you're gonna want my mic on, I know I can tell. I can tell that. So in the situation, the easiest one is, let's just use Capri. If Capri has this, and we're talking about an outdoor dining, and it's a great party, it's a great evening, I'm gonna go to Gigi and go, hey, can we close it down at 11? Absolutely not. So I disagree with Trustee Smith on this one. Everyone went through the commission, they went through the planning commission to get their permits to get where they're at. And they got the special use, they invested with their attorneys to get what they wanted. And now we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna put you in a little tiny package and put you back in a cage? I disagree.
Thank you for your comments. Trustee Scapa. I'm sorry, Trustee Paveza hasn't spoken yet.
When we're talking about the hours of operation, what's on the record now doesn't bother me. The thing that would bother me, if there's trouble at these locations, that's when we would come in and check the hours and see how that affects their operation. But the basic hours right now, as long as there's no trouble, I don't see any record for changing.
Thank you. Trustee Scapa.
I wanted to ask Janine, so when did the board ask the planning commission to look at these hours?
February 14th.
February 14th, okay. So February, March, April, May, so we're 3 months into it. I just think time is of the essence here. I think it's just going to elongate a process. I want to be a village that finishes tasks, gets stuff done. We've already had a public comment on these hours. And now that we've got it straightened out, I think what we're doing is we're reducing the hours from 2 a.m. to 1 a.m. So I think that's something that most residents would be in favor of. So I don't agree with sending it back to the planning commission.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Durkin.
I do have a comment with respect to the outdoor dining. With the language that we have now, all except those two that have the 2 a.m. licenses conform to the hours of operation that we have with their special uses. In fact, some of them may be gaining a little bit more time because they may have had an 11 o'clock closing, but that's their choice. Whereas we were not taking anything away from any of those, and that's why we specify that those two that have 2 a.m. Would be able to continue with that unless you went through an amendment process for them. With respect to outdoor dining, if you take hours of operation and change what some of these restaurants may already have through the special use process, you're doing exactly what I said you can't do with the 2 a.m. licenses. So you have to be cautious. Unless, Janine, is there another mechanism that is on the books that regulates outdoor dining hours?
So many of these establishments do have outdoor dining, which then had prescribed hours through their special uses for the outdoor dining. And we do have regulations. I only have the County Line Square PUD in front of me here, where the outdoor dining has to close a half hour before the restaurant closes. So the outdoor dining area has to close down earlier than the interior restaurant operations.
So if they have a special use that currently provides for outdoor dining hours that's an earlier closing time than what we have specified in these hours listed there. Let's distinguish now between indoor dining and outdoor dining. Right now, it's a global standard, but if you do distinguish it, for those that have special uses that allow later outdoor dining than what you wanted to specify, we're not going to be able to do that. They're still riding through and grandfathered through with their special use that's been granted. So if that's your direction, we could take a look at that before this goes back to the Plan Commission if you send it there next week, and make sure that we're in compliance with that legal standard.
So, Mike, if I understand you correctly, so we have some restaurants that can stay open till 2 a.m. And are you suggesting that these outdoor restaurants, if they have a closing time of 2 a.m., they could have outdoor dining open till 1:30 a.m.?
No, I believe that, as Ms. Farrell said, that the outdoor dining may have been granted as a special use, and it may have had particular hours for outdoor dining that are not the same as their indoor dining and not the same as what's being proposed here on the screen. If they have a special use, my advice would be that the outdoor dining hours could not be earlier than what their special use for outdoor dining hours were already established. And we'd have to make that uniform or put other language in there similar to what we did for the 2 a.m. licenses.
Okay, so this has become convoluted with the addition of the outdoor dining to consider. If it were to go back to the Plan Commission, when would be earliest that the Plan Commission could possibly hear this?
It would be Monday,
Monday?
the 16th,
And then it would be back to us the following Monday?
23rd.
Yes.
So we would lose 2 weeks.
Well, you won't lose any time because you'd have to direct staff tonight to prepare an ordinance to come back at the next meeting anyway in order to be adopted, even if you skip the Plan Commission.
Understood. We would have, but once it came back to the board from the Plan Commission, we'd still have that ordinance step. So we would lose 2 weeks, I think. If the Plan Commission were to hear it, they'd hold another public hearing, invite public comment, correct?
Correct.
So now that we have this understanding of how these global hours would be applied to existing businesses that hold liquor licenses and PUDs and such, it would be, give the Plan Commission more to investigate, more to hear about, et cetera. Previously, I did attend that Plan Commission meeting, and previously they felt like, well, why are we being asked to look at this? There's nothing, if we recommend the passage of this, it won't apply to any of these restaurants anyway, so.
Correct.
That was the reason for no recommendation, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So, it sounds like there might be some support. Sorry. Trustee Snyder,
When you finish, sir.
please go ahead.
I'm following your lead. It was also what Trustee Schiappa said. We sent it there in February, went to Planning Commission. They reviewed it. They sent it back to us. Try and put it global. We don't want to change anything we've already given. I have to send it back to the Planning Commission. I don't think it's necessary. I think we can just go through and take a vote.
Let me clarify one thing. So the normal schedule of business is to have 2 readings of this at the board level. We actually have it back on June 13th, so it'd be a 3-week delay because we don't have a meeting week of Memorial Day. So just keep that in mind. The other issue is that we really haven't thought about the outdoor dining yet. We've only really prepared language for the indoor dining or a global one-size-fits-all. So I would suggest that the board focus on the importance of outdoor dining, determining if that is the thing that you want to hear more about. If you do, we have no recommendation for you tonight. The Planning Commission has not given any recommendation in that regard. If you want to pass that or take it up another time, we could certainly do that and or move forward with that tonight. But I just want to make clear that, especially in the staff level, we haven't given any thought to parsing out outdoor, indoor dining regarding that. We've only really done a global hours scale.
Okay, thank you for that. So it sounds like there's some interest in remanding this back to the Plan Commission. It sounds like there's interest in not remanding it back. Also, I think we need the Plan Commission to take up the subject of outdoor dining and when that should be globally applied. Should they make a recommendation for that. I'd like to hear some public comment on that. Certainly, the outdoor dining affects nearby neighbors and residents, and we need their valuable input. So,
Yes, I agree.
any comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Come up to the podium, please. State your name.
Good evening. I'm Nicholas Esposito. I represent Mr. Revito, Capri, and Are We Live. So just for information, Capri has a 2 o'clock. They're at 2, and I didn't see their name on the resolution. I saw 2 other businesses. Is Capri one of these grandfathered, I'll call it grandfathered restaurants?
Special use?
No, they're not. The information that I have is that they're not one of the 2 establishments that have a special use for a 2 a.m.
He's had 2 a.m. for 18 years. So we need to look at that and consider that. Next, we have a pending petition to increase the hours at Are We Live to 2 o'clock, and we were asked to defer it for purposes of this matter tonight, which we were happy to do, and to have you address hours, generally speaking, for the village. Our expectation or hope was that it would be 2 o'clock for everybody rather than 1 and 2 or 3 exceptions. So I just want you to understand that we have a petition that we had filed, but again, we haven't withdrawn it, but it still exists, and we were seeking 2 o'clock for Are We Live. So I'll leave it at that because it's not on your agenda tonight, as far as I understand. But I want you to know about Capri.
Yes, thank you.
2 o'clock for 18 years. To now require him to go down to 1 o'clock, I don't think is fundamentally fair considering the two others that you recognize.
All right, thank you for bringing that up, and staff, would you please investigate that and confirm what Mr. Esposito is
But
saying?
also the issue of, so my understanding is the way this is proposed, Are We Live would go to 1 o'clock?
Yes,
Okay. But we still have a petition for 2, but we'll see where that
I
goes.
understand, but you have a petition, doesn't mean it's granted automatically.
No, I understand.
Okay.
That. Yes.
Thank you.
I understand it. I just want to understand what this says
Sure.
and how it might affect Are We Live. Thank you.
Investigate that for us, please. Certainly. And report back. Thank you. So, any other discussion from the audience? Back to the board here. Someone care to make a motion?
I would suggest that the motion should be in the form of whether you move to either bypass the plan commission or you move to remand this matter back to the plan commission, because that seems to be the topic that there's a dividing line on.
Seems to be consensus about the hours for the global hours that, of course, don't apply to the other 2 restaurants, or the other 3 restaurants. We'll get confirmation on that. But for the global hours, it seems to be consensus, correct? Okay.
We have to determine the outdoor hours.
I'm sorry?
We have to still determine the outdoor hours, and that's why the planning commission needs to do that?
Outdoor dining, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I would like to hear from the plan commission and hear from the public at a public hearing
Right.
about outdoor dining and what should there be a global hours for outdoor dining. So, Trustee Scapa, you had it.
I'd like to make a motion for staff to prepare an ordinance recommending the text amendment for the hours Sunday through Wednesday at midnight, Thursday through Saturday at 1 a.m. for restaurants with a liquor license in a B1 or B2 district.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion from the board members. Any discussion from the audience? Will so then this, make it clear, this does not then remand this topic back to the plan commission, correct?
And this is for indoor
Dining only,
indoor dining.
and it does not remand this topic back to the plan commission.
Correct.
Okay. Roll call, please.
No, I just had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, so then the
You're
outdoor dining would be a separate topic?
So just for outdoor dining.
Oh, that's
We'll have to change the language slightly to make sure that it specifies these are hours for indoor dining only.
Oh,
Can I
just
make
one.
that change in my motion to add that it's for indoor dining?
Yes. Is there a second for that section?
Absolutely.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Can I have a motion to direct the Plan Commission to take up the topic of outdoor dining hours of operation globally?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Any discussion from the audience? Roll call, please.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. Thank you, board members, for your comments. I appreciate it. Good discussion.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. 8B. Excuse me?
Question. So is Capri,
Would you come up here, please? I can't hear you.
sorry, sure, is Capri now one of the 2 or 3?
No.
Staff is going to find out, look up your special use for Capri and see what the hours of operation are, and then, depending on what the special use says, you may be included in those 2 or 3, or you may not be. So staff is going to do the research and get back with you and get back with the board. Thank you. Okay, 8B, consideration of Plan Commission recommendation to approve special use amendment for a restaurant Z04-2022, 308 to 312 Burridge Parkway, Revito. Development Director Farrell, please.
Thank you. Excuse me. The petitioner Filippo Revito seeks to expand the existing Are We Live restaurant operations into the neighboring unit, which is Unit 308. The use will include, obviously, the restaurant operations themselves, but the liquor service, outdoor dining, and hours of operation until midnight. I know we just had a discussion on that, but that was what the original petition was. The case was tabled at the March 21st meeting until May 2nd, and there was not a representative at that time in March to answer some questions that the Plan Commission had. And the Plan Commission also requested outdoor dining and parking plans. At the May 2nd meeting, the Plan Commission recommended unanimous approval of the request with 5 conditions. There were several email objections that were received and which were included in the staff report packet. At the public hearing itself, there was 1 objection made, and then 1 member of the public spoke in support of the request. The petitioner did provide outdoor dining plans, updated outdoor dining plans, and a parking plan, which was distributed to the board. And I could take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions from the board on this matter? Trustee Smith.
So a question for you, Director. I noticed that there's going to be some improvements with the ramp as well as some of the flower areas. Is that at the cost of the mall, or is that the cost of the operator?
I'm not sure who's paying for it specifically, but it is the actual property owner's property.
And when will that work be done? Yep.
Nicholas Esposito again on behalf of Mr. Revito and Are We Live? So here's what happened. We went and looked at the site with the landlord, and we talked that night after the Plan Commission was raining. We went and looked at the site and said, what are we going to do about this ramp? We have to have clearance. And the gentleman here brought that up at the Plan Commission meeting, and we were very concerned to make sure that that was satisfied. The landlord then said, I'll remove the ramp and I'll move it at my cost. And I talked to him today, and I asked for his authority to represent to you that he will remove the ramp subject to approval by the village on the engineering. He'll remove the current ramp, and he's going to move it over maybe about 15, 20 feet. There'll be another flat surface for it to go onto. And the fencing that we want for Are We Live will be able to go in, and the handicapped people would be able to get around the fence on a flat surface. That was the concern. With respect to the planters, they are movable.
Okay.
And the landlord's going to move those 2 at his cost.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Snyder, you had a question?
We've had a parking problem over there forever. So one thing we talked about a few years ago on parking, would there be any consideration from Mr. Revito that he asks employees to put an employee tag in the car so that They don't park in the parking lot to maximize the use space for his utilization of his own restaurant. Because the parking there, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and when Johnny Cabs does open up too, with Are We Live and Capri, it's gonna be very busy. I'd like to have some kind of consideration maybe on that one.
Have there been
Employees
issues?
park, you're saying commitment debt. A commitment is a commitment. Have a tag from an employee, you park in the back, not or park in the front or somewhere else, not in the lot, so we can utilize the parking.
So you're suggesting that
We ask.
all restaurant employees, Johnny Cabs, Capri, Are We
Yes.
Live,
I'm okay with doing it all.
Capri Express Style, they all have employee tags. What happens if I don't put my tag in my car?
Just trying to bounce an idea off.
Okay.
The parking, we've had this parking issue and it continues.
Sure.
It's only gonna get worse. Trying to make it easy for everyone.
More difficult.
And I did, just throwing it out there.
Is staff aware of any issues or complaints of employees parking in the restaurant parking spaces out front of the restaurants where they have been encouraged in the past to park behind
Not-
the behind the restaurants or on the Pace lot?
Sorry, not recently. I think that's been a lesser issue lately at County Line Square, so nothing sticks out in my mind is the best way to answer it, so I would answer that as no.
No? Any issues with concert people from the Village Center parking there that we've had in the past?
I've only
Any
started in
complaints?
January, so I'm not, I need to know.
Most common parking issue, I would call it, are Pace parking, wherein persons who cannot get a space at Pace park in front of Capri or the like. But I believe Mr. Garber's gotten a little bit better at that, policing, ticketing and the like. We also have an enforcement agreement with County Line Square, which allows us to ticket for parking on stripes, parking in illegal areas, parking in the fire lane. Still signed as a fire lane, even though we've brought it up as not being a fire lane legally anymore. So I would say I would call the evening parking issues, there's a legality, are resolving themselves and becoming less of an enforcement issue.
I'm not trying to cause a problem. 4 o'clock.
Oh, no, it's an idea.
Employees park on the west side of the parking. Just saying, going down the road, Are We Live's gonna be
Sure.
spectacular hit. There's gonna be more and more. Is there any way, a commitment's nice, maybe we just leave it as a commitment. I'm just asking, the parking's been bad for years. I don't see it getting improved.
I would agree. Trustee Smith?
Question for council. We just passed 8A with the hours of operations, and in 8B of the 5 conditions, number 2, we have activity in indoor restaurant area shall cease, all patrons shall vacate the premises no later than midnight. If we approve 8B as is, does that create any issues for hours for this operation, or should I make a
They have
motion to
1
strike
o'clock.
2?
They'd have a 1 o'clock for those 3 days.
Okay. So no need to strike item number 2?
I would not include that in the,
Just strike item 2
yeah, I would
altogether?
strike number 2 as a condition in the ordinance, so.
Then it reverts to the global?
Yes.
So I would like to strike,
Okay.
if the board agrees, I'd like to strike item number 2, restricting the hours no later than midnight in 8B.
You making a motion?
I'd like to make that, that's my motion, yes.
Oh, we're not finished our discussion yet, sorry.
There's also item number 3, which deals with outdoor dining and the hours of operation. So since we already poked that bear, we might as well deal with that bear that's been awakened, so.
This guy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments, discussion from the audience members?
With respect to the parking, I'd like to address
Please come up so we can hear you, and so you could be recorded on tape and on video.
Nicholas Esposito on behalf of Are We Live in Rito. With respect to the parking, I addressed that with an email to Evan.
Would you care to summarize it?
Can I read it? Just read it right from the record here?
Sure.
So the email, it came from you. I'm going to read your
Certainly,
email.
go ahead.
So there's 2 points. Valet service will be available between 5 and 10 p.m. Thursday through Sunday with the same operation currently used by Capri. Second bullet, Are We Live employees will park in the rear of the building or otherwise off-site consistent with employee parking for Capri.
So we were asked to make those 2 commitments, and I did. on behalf of our lab.
Those are,
Just want to have them on the record.
and they would be accepted as part of the record, and that the Plan Commission asked that the plans and those plans be included as part of the record with their recommendation. So if you accepted their recommendation, subject to any other condition changes, they would be reflected in the special use and thus enforceable.
Thank you.
For clarifying that. Other questions or comments? Trustee Scapa.
So this is another petitioner that has been working with us since December and is looking to expand his business. The business has been a wonderful contributor to the village of Burr Ridge, and I think that this expansion will provide even more benefit to the village of Burr Ridge, and it's something that we should consider. I agree with Trustee Smith. We should strike 2 and 3, considering we've already addressed the indoor dining hours, and we will address the outdoor dining areas. It's something that we should resolve, and they've been patiently waiting for us since December to get this get approved for them.
Okay, I'll take exception to that.
Yeah.
Because at the March 21st meeting, which I attended, they weren't prepared to answer any questions. There was no representative to answer any questions.
Okay.
So then they were delayed till May 2nd. And May 2nd, they still didn't have the paperwork done. And at this last minute, as of today, the paperwork came in.
Okay.
So it's not been the village, it's not been us, it's not been staff, it's been the petitioner. So, but yes, I agree that they've been a wonderful addition to the village. We certainly all want to see them succeed, but I don't want the village to take the rap for this being delayed since December.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I have a comment, please, on the outdoor dining. Since we've said that we're going to segregate the outdoor dining in our hours of operation and have the Plan Commission look at that, you currently have restaurants with liquor licenses that have special uses that specify closing time for outdoor dining. It's my understanding that this is the first time it's coming before the board for Are We Live for outdoor dining. There's no existing special use containing an outdoor dining closing time for this establishment. Am I mistaken?
The existing special use for the current operations does specify this same 11 p.m.
11? Okay, so then that's what this outdoor dining will go to until the Plan Commission otherwise addresses that. It's going to be 11 o'clock, same as it's currently granted. Okay, so that's the status quo until Plan Commission may otherwise choose. Okay.
Trustee, Community Development Director Farrell, so you have received outdoor seating plans and they are satisfactory to yourself, the Community Development Department, and Chairman Trupek?
Correct, yes. We received the plans. Both Chairman Trupek and I did review them, and from that preliminary review, they do appear to meet the outdoor dining regulations.
Okay, and so Community Development Department, the village is satisfied with those plans, and also the outdoor, I'm sorry, the parking plan as well.
Correct, yes.
Okay, and so those will be made part of the recommendation then?
Correct, yes, and they'll be included as exhibits for the ordinance.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anything else from the audience? Willing to entertain a motion?
So just to be clear, we're going to leave 3 in there because we have
3 stays in, 2 comes out.
Comes out.
So I'd like to make a motion for staff to prepare an ordinance to approve a special use amendment for Restaurant Z04 2022 308-312 Burr Ridge Parkway, Revito, and removing the second condition from the recommendations of the Plan Commission, which is that second condition is activity in indoor restaurant area shall cease and all patrons shall vacate the premise no later than midnight on any given day.
And also the submittals that were furnished today would be included as well.
Submittals today of the parking plan and outdoor dining plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Paveza. Questions or comments on the motion?
Audience?
Trustee Chiappa?
I'm sorry. Questions or comments from anybody in the audience? Roll call, please.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes. Thank you and welcome and good luck with your expansion. Okay, moving on. Item 8C, consideration of a plan commission recommendation to approve a variation to permit a detached accessory structure in the side buildable area of a residential property. V02 2022 8311 Fars Cove, Panico. Redevelopment Director Farrell.
Thank you. The petitioner, Richard Panico, has requested a variation to construct a detached garage in the side buildable area. Current zoning ordinance regulations permit a detached accessory building, including a garage, in the rear buildable area only. In 2004, the petitioner submitted plans to the village showing this garage in the side buildable area and received preliminary approval from village staff at that time. When the petitioner submitted then for building permit approval formally, the plans were denied for having this garage in the side buildable area. The petitioner removed that garage, continued with his building plans to build the primary residence and then another rear detached garage. So at the public hearing on May 2nd, the Plan Commission did believe that this was a unique situation that was applicable to the subject property only. This was a 17-year kind of situation with the village and Mr. Panico that would not be applicable to other properties, but only to his property. The structure itself that was being or is being proposed and the layout and the configuration of the property itself was unique only to this specific property as well in terms of the variation. There were no public comments that were received or made at the public hearing, and the commission did vote unanimously to approve the variation request.
Thank you. Also want to mention that we do have two plan commissioners here in the audience.
Yes. We have Commissioners McCullion and Commissioner Morton.
Be happy to answer any questions as well.
Yes.
So, Trustee Paveza.
With the uniqueness of this property, I just want to make sure that approving it, I don't see a problem with it, but I just want to make sure that we're not setting a precedent so sometime in the future we end up with more adjustments.
Correct, and that was something that the commission had extensive discussions about, the concern about creating a precedence here. So as was discussed at the meeting, this situation has not come up in the past 15 years since the oldest commissioners have been on the commission. This is also a situation where the commission would not be willing to approve a garage in the side buildable area on other properties. It was very site-specific for what this petitioner was proposing, which is also a side-load garage, architecturally compatible. It actually screens the other detached garage that's on the property. So the layout of the buildings in relation to one another, the commission made very strong arguments that this was related to this specific petitioner's kind of situation with the village from the past 17 years and specific to his property and to the building that he was looking to build.
Continuing on with that, I've had a little bit more discussion with this petitioner. We had a different approach with this a couple of months ago. But essentially what happened was in 2004, staff gave the petitioner very incorrect information. You cannot build a detached structure in the side yard. And we informed him that he could. Because of that, we reviewed with the village attorney, and there was a lot of suggestion that because the village made essentially a gross error in misadvising the petitioner, we instead created the hardship. Had he been given the correct information from the start, the variation may not be necessary because he would have had access to the correct information, which would have allowed him to have built everything in a normal legal fashion. So the hardship is essentially because the village, through our own error 15, 20 years ago, did not allow him to comply with the zoning ordinance. And that is essentially the definition of a variation is it possible for you to comply with the zoning ordinance? And because of our mistake, and we're on record of admitting that mistake in a letter to Mr. Panico, that error is what is establishing the precedent here, which is to say, at 8311 Forest Cove, in the case of a side yard garage and nothing else, the village did in fact admit an error, which caused Mr. Panico a hardship. And so to your point, Trustee Paveza, that is where there is no precedent, in that it is essentially impossible for this mistake to repeat itself in precedential form, and that it would have to occur at this property with the exact same type of development in the future. The odds of that are essentially nil, but here we are, and that's where the Plan Commission had felt that this was an appropriate request to move forward with this, and that's really the legal underpinnings for why this was recommended. So that's a little bit of backstory for you.
Just to expand upon what Village Administrator Waltzer said, we do have a letter of apology from the village from 2000, and I believe it was dated 2005. We have extensive email correspondence documenting the different meetings that this petitioner had with the village at that time and the results of those meetings. So there was substantiated evidence showing what had occurred at that time.
So what you're saying then is for a mistake to occur, for a variance like this to occur in the future, these kinds of mistakes this kind of a mistake would have to be committed in the future, and then these back and forth correspondence would have to happen as well.
Correct, yes, there would have to be.
Which is extremely unlikely.
Yes.
So that is the basis for this not being non-precedent setting.
Correct.
Okay, agree with that?
Yes, it's unique to the fact that there was a plan submitted with what was described as an attached garage, but it was really only attached to the primary residence by a wall, and not like a common wall or a party wall, but literally a wall, like a fence wall. And so they were originally told that that was okay, and then that was reconsidered. So I doubt that those circumstances will repeat themselves in the future.
And as a sidebar, the Plan Commission has been asked to further define the definition of an attached garage.
Yes, actually, it was not this petition, but coincidentally, they are looking into that, I think, Monday, actually.
Monday,
So,
yes.
So we can just, if these wing walls or these attachment walls or thing that goes over, what do you call those?
Portico share.
Portico shares that go over, make it a attached garage or not. Trustee Smith.
Director Farrell, I noticed in the Plan Commission meetings that the petitioner went in 2021 with the same request, but was denied. So a year ago it was denied, and then this year it was accepted. What changed?
So the request itself changed. So back last year, the petitioner was requesting a text amendment that would apply to every residential property. So every residential property would be allowed to put a garage in the side buildable area. The Plan Commission at that time did not feel that was appropriate. They did not want to permit every residential property to be able to have a garage in the side buildable area. So it was denied, and the petitioner then withdrew that request. And as he has stated, that was really never his intent, was to try to change the rules for everyone, that he is looking just for his specific property, which is why he then pursued the variation.
Thank you. Yep, thank you for the clarification. Good.
Trustee Scappa.
And I'm guessing by the photo, the notice on the property, notice was sent out to neighbors, newspaper, and there were no objections, no emails or?
Correct, yes. So notice was posted at the property itself. Letters were sent out within 750 feet. And we also published in the newspaper. I did receive one phone call from a neighbor just asking what was going on, and so I explained it, and he said that he's a great neighbor and he trusts what he builds will be nice. So
Okay.
He did not object at all.
Great, thank you.
Commissioners McCollum and Morton, do you have anything to add?
I think you've done a fair job of covering some of the issues the Plan Commission evaluated. I think the hardship was an integral part of the Plan Commission coming together to vote for approving it. And I also think that the street view, which I've not seen flashed up on
Can you put that up?
board tonight, is a significant improvement over what's already there. So while it would be a non-conforming approval, overall the outcome is a benefit to the community.
Thank you. That's a good point. So here is the proposed Street view, the proposed detached garage is on the right. It is blocking the 4-car garage behind it. So now you only see one garage, overhead garage door. Previously you saw 4. So from the street, it'll be an improvement. So improvement for the neighbors visually. Thank you. Anything else? Questions or comments from the audience? I don't see the petitioner here, though.
No, the petitioner was unsure if he would be able to attend tonight, but asked that this proceed.
Did he have any comments to add that you're aware of?
He did not.
Thank you. Okay. With that, motion to consider the Plan Commission recommendation to approve the variation to permitted detached accessory structure in the side buildable area of the residential property at 8311 Fars Cove.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on the motion.
Second.
Discussion from anybody in the audience on the motion. Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Mattel?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the end of considerations. To item, oh, G. My apologies, 8D. I would like to skip it. Considerations, 8D. Consideration of the status of Lakeside Point subdivision maintenance records / cash in lieu of required sidewalk construction. Yes, sir. Mr. Walter.
Thank you, Pro Tem Francis. So, Lakeside Point subdivision on Bridewell Drive near 55 is requesting a number of items tonight. I want to be clear that any direction tonight will simply be to prepare these documents for a later meeting, likely 2 weeks from tonight, on May 23rd. So it's a PUD, Lakeside Point PUD, which includes 44 single-family homes on private streets near our downtown. All 44 permits have been issued. Most, if all, not all, of the subdivision improvements have been built satisfactorily according to our staff reviews. So we first and foremost recommend that the subdivision be accepted. What happens then is we move it into something called the maintenance phase, where we retain a certain letter of credit to make sure that the subdivision improvements are in place in quality fashion. So if you put in a bad street and the street fell apart, we'd be able to draw on that letter of credit, or they'd have to replace it themselves just to make sure that the work is done in quality fashion. We recommend that be done no matter what happens tonight otherwise. There is a separate letter of credit. There's actually 2 letters of credits in place. The first is for the core subdivision improvements. That's things like the streets, the stormwaters, the curbs, some of the rights-of-way easements that are in place. There's no actual rights-of-way, but the easements which are in place to house those things. That is one. And we also have off-site improvements, such as a sidewalk, an off-site pedestrian bridge, and the like around a nearby pond. And so there's actually 2 letters of credit. We'll be maintaining both of those throughout the maintenance phase. But the core functions of the subdivision are complete today. The main reason why we're here tonight is McNaughton is requesting a cash payment to be made to the village in lieu of constructing a sidewalk connection presently required by the PUD agreement between the western boundary of Lakeside Point and an existing asphalt pathway on Burr Ridge Parkway. So they're essentially extending west to east, or they are required to today, we're extending west to east along Bridewell Drive on the south side. There's a vacant 2.8 acre parcel right there north of the Marriott, which this would sit adjacent to. Because that is not on their property, they are requesting that they provide the village with cash in lieu in favor of constructing the sidewalk. If the village accepted a cash in lieu in favor of constructing it today, the sidewalk would be provided by a future development there. So an office, hotel, whatever, that developer would be then responsible for taking that sidewalk up and building that as part of their improvements on their own property. The engineer's estimate for constructing this section of sidewalk, about 375 feet of sidewalk, is $27,930. It's a fairly flat piece of terrain. There are no real engineering concerns in terms of wetland, water runoff, grading that needs to occur. So it's a fairly simple process, but really it's about saving that developer time. So if the village board elects, we would collect $27,930, at which point the cash would be placed in an embargoed place wherein the village could use that for future sidewalk improvements such as Garfield or something on 79th Street, as we've talked before, and be funded toward those projects. So the village could still get that sidewalk on the south side of Bridewell while also getting some additional cash to fund with extra projects. That's the extent of our presentation tonight. Here to answer any questions as well as village engineer pricing. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the board? Trustee Snyder?
Yes, is that the current cost for the sidewalk? With everything going up on a daily basis, is it gonna be $35,000 tomorrow?
Yes, it's a conservative, we always take a conservative estimate about what the village would cost the village to build those things. So yes, we feel very good about that number.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a few.
Please.
So you mentioned the 2 letters of credit, and the second letter of credit, that was for the off-site improvements.
Correct.
That is for the continuation of the sidewalk around the existing pond
Correct.
and the installation of the bridge over the spillway.
Correct.
And does the developer have any intention of installing those, to your knowledge?
They have intent to, and if they do not, the village can use their letter of credit to install them anyway. That's what the letter of credit is there for.
And it's staff's opinion that the letter of credit is adequate to install those? Should we have to do that this year or next year?
Yes, we've received a number of bids or quotes, as I would call it, as to the nature of that. I believe they cost anywhere from about $160,000 to $190,000, and we have about $250,000 in there, so we have sufficient letters of credit on hand to complete that work in the event we had to.
And that would include, yeah.
All of the above, yeah. Off-Strait Bridge, sidewalk improvements, yes.
And also to manage that project should staff undertake it, the
Correct.
cost for staff's time.
Correct, because we have that additional 25%. That cushion is there for Dave to take over that project if need be.
And how long is the maintenance period for?
2 years.
2 years. Okay, so in 2 years, if there is any problems should appear, they would be discovered in a 2-year period.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, okay. I'm sorry, another question? Trustee Paveza? No? Okay. Should we give them a time limit on completing those other off-site improvements? You know, we've been talking about this bridge and this sidewalk since before this development started, and it still hasn't happened. I have a concern that it could drag out. We had issues with this developer in their front entryway sign and their front entryway fencing, and it took a year and a half.
Wow.
And a considerable amount of staff's time and effort to get those resolved. So I would suggest the board consider a time limit for these off-site improvements to be performed. Otherwise, the village will perform them. Okay, so something to consider if we make a motion tonight. Trustee Paveza.
I just want to make sure, he touched on it, but the way costs have gone up over the last year, are you sure that's enough money to cover what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, sidewalks, it's basic math. It's $5 per square foot times the linear square footage of the entire project. So I understand costs have gone up, but we've accounted for those things based on current projects that are being bid in other towns as well as
One thing
ours.
I'm interested in is the bridge.
Steel.
Yeah, the bridge is about $150,000 to $200,000 project, as I said. That's another project. I'm sorry if I wasn't answering the right question there, but the in-ground sidewalk connecting Lakeside to Bridewell is fairly cheap. Again, it's flat. It's really just dig, pour, level, done. But the bridge and the sidewalk linear footage around the lake would be significantly more because there's terrain issues that you have to have, plus simply the cost of making anything steel-oriented like that is expensive. So again, our village engineer has done a very thorough job of making sure that costs were accurately reflected in the letter of credit to make sure the village was not harmed by any rising costs that may have occurred over the last 3 or 4 years. This was started in 2018, just to give you an idea of kind of the age of this subdivision. So we're 4 years in now. We have been updating those letters of credit, and again, staff feels very confident that the numbers you're seeing tonight in the backup memo are accurate, and the village would not be at a loss if we had to draw on those.
Thank you. Trustee Snyder.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to give us your expertise and your feeling of how long we should put the letter for direction of timetable?
Well, considering the bulk of the construction is complete at that facility, all the units are sold. I see the sign out front says they're all sold, and the construction is wrapping up. It might be a good time for this summer for them to complete these other activities. If I would speculate that if they're not completed by December 31st, that it would be my position that the village then undertake them and draw on their letter of credit.
Should we forewarn them or give them a time limit?
We're doing that right now.
Doesn't
With a time limit.
the memo say separate letter of credit and improvement schedule? Is maintained by the village. Would that improvement schedule list when those improvements, the bridge and the sidewalk, were required to be installed, and that would trigger the drawing of the letter of credit?
Yeah, and I wanted to add in, so when we were talking to some of the vendors, I mean, things could be delayed, but as you mentioned, with cost increases and stuff, it could be, next spring by the time things are permitted, approved, to get the erection crews out there and get the thing delivered. So December 31st may not be likely, depending on how stuff goes. So we anticipated at the latest would be spring.
How about 1 year from today?
Sure.
That'd be acceptable?
That would be acceptable to me. I don't know about the rest of the board. Okay. Is there any thoughts about, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, go ahead. Any other questions, considerations, discussion? Any members of the audience have any questions or comments on this topic?
Where's the bridge getting installed? I'm looking at the top site plan.
Yeah, so are you aware of the spillway kind of connecting near Marriott?
It's on the far east section of that development. It's at approximately 73rd Place. Right about where your cursor is?
There?
So what is it, what 2 points is it connecting?
Dave, is it right there or is it down here?
It is
I was going to say,
further south. Yeah.
this is 73rd Place here.
Right. South of 73rd Place. Yep, right about there.
Right in there, yep.
And it's gonna go over the pond?
It'll span kind of an indent.
Okay.
Where the pond outlets is
Yeah.
the spillway they're referring to. So this is bridging that spillway, a floodway too.
Oh, because there's a sidewalk there. All right.
It could be.
It'll allow for the sidewalk to be continued and make a full loop then around the entire pond. There's a spillway at the southwest corner, which is the inlet to this pond,
Okay.
and there's currently a bridge over that,
Mhm.
which then allows the path to continue up to the Marriott and up to Lakeside Point. So the developer is required to complete the pathway and install the bridge
Okay. 1 year from today.
1 year from today. Okay. Questions or comments? Are you all acceptable with the cash in lieu of construction for the sidewalk? And those funds would go into the pathway fund?
We no longer have a pathway fund. They would be put in the capital improvements fund, but we would put an earmark on them to pay for a future sidewalk project. There's a number that are coming down the pike, which they would readily be used for.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Nothing further? Could I have a motion, please, to consider the Lake Point subdivision maintenance period and a cash donation in lieu of required sidewalk construction?
Also with a 1-year date to finish,
1 year date to finish the off-site improvements,
site improvements including the bridge.
including the bridge and the sidewalk.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from
Any-
trustee Mattal. Discussion on the motion? Discussion from the audience members on the motion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mattal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Schaffo?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Moving on, public comment. Anybody in the audience have public comment this evening? Would like to address the board on any topic? Seeing none, reports and communications from village officials. Trustee Mattal, anything to add?
Yes, well, I wanted to congratulate Hannah Wyan. She did a really nice job along with staff. We had a really nice 5K run the ridge, and I think the most exciting part was the 1K. They were the most enthusiastic participants. It was so cute to watch them exercising, and it was very well done. And thankfully, the sun shone upon us, and we had a gorgeous day. So that was very nice. The next thing we have to look forward to is the Armed Forces Day, which is going to be here in front of the Village Hall at 10 a.m. on May 21st. And then the concerts are going to start on June 2nd, every Thursday at 7 p.m. in the Village Green. So lots of fun stuff to look forward to.
Thank you. Some great activities coming up, and thank you for your guidance and help on the Run the Ridge 5K. Anyone else? I have a couple things to add, if that's okay. So, yes, as Trustee Mattel mentioned, the Run the Ridge 5K took place last Saturday, and the beautiful weather brought out over 100 runners, along with their families and friends. It was a great spectacle, a great activity, and thank you all to all those who participated and the volunteers and staff who made that great event happen. It's getting back to normalcy here in the village. This Saturday is a special day. We're one of the few villages in the area that celebrates Armed Forces Day, where we honor our armed forces members, past and present. It was always a special day for my father when I would bring him to Armed Forces Day. He was a World War II veteran, and he would attend when his health permitted. The village, in collaboration with the Burr Ridge Veterans Memorial Committee, will be holding this ceremony on Saturday, May 21st, 2022, to commemorate Armed Forces Day, and we have a special guest. The special guest is?
1 second. Okay, I'll get it for you.
The event will take place from 10 a.m. to 11:30 at the Burr Ridge Veterans Memorial, located in front of Village Hall. All of the residents and their families are invited to join us. It is a special guest.
General Smith.
Are you asking me?
Pardon?
Are you asking me?
Yes, anyone?
His last name is Smith.
General Smith.
General Smith, thank you.
Actually, he's a
I
captain.
was going to say it's Captain.
Yeah,
Smith.
captain.
Captain Smith.
Captain Smith.
Looking forward to hearing him speak.
Couple things.
Mr. Walter.
Thank you. Just wanted to make the board and the community aware of a couple of important things from a communications perspective which are coming up. The new website is going live June 1st. We are in the very final stages of editing, looking over things right now. I wanted to thank some of the members of the community for helping out with that. Mr. Morton, Trustee Maital, ADC member Stetton, Plan Commissioner Petrich, and I believe a few other residents were very kind to donate some time to help us do a beta test of the site, to go through it, to see what links were working, what things were not as clear as they could have been from a navigation perspective. So I wanted to thank them for their time, for their effort, for helping us build a better website. We're very excited about it. A lot of time has gone into it, and I'm very pleased with the work that Hannah and staff have done to make sure that is a successful launch. So again, June 1st. We are timing that with the release of the June Oak Leaf. So you should be getting our June Oak Leafs via email every month. Over June is our annual mailer. So we'll be sending out a 12-page glossy magazine about the village. You saw a sneak preview today. It's a very, very nice publication that I think all residents and businesses will benefit from. We've put out a budget in brief as part of that. It's a 4-page abbreviated version of our budget, telling the community about what the village has done budget-wise, a lot of the success we've had about our budget over that last month or so. So just encouraging everyone to be aware of that, to read it. Let us know what you think. But again, a lot of time has gone into that from Hannah and the KMG team. We've had a very nice meeting with them today, and I'm very much looking forward to mailing that out to everybody in hard copy form. There's a lot of great stuff in there, a lot of good notes and materials for the village. So just wanted to note that, and we're looking forward to those going out. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else to add? Captain Scott Smith?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, nothing else? Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.